Hi there, welcome to the channel. We're going to continue our series today working on this David Brown 990 tractor. This is my uncle's tractor, and the problem was when it was cranked, the arms would go straight up and stay there and would not come down. We've removed all the components out of here, and we've done several videos on that. If you're interested in those, take a look at the previous videos on the channel and how we've gotten to this point so far. Today, we'll be taking a look at the hydraulic valve chest, specifically the spool valve. We'll be checking the adjustment of the spool valve and changing it if needed. All right, so what do you see in front of you here? We've got a vise that's holding the valve chest. It's got the spool valve in a horizontal position, and we got a dial indicator over here set up with the, whatever you call this thing, the plunger, up against the bottom of the spool valve. We'll basically be following the manual for this. It has all the instructions that you need on this, the service manuals that I'll link in the description below. Down below the video, there's a description box, and I'll have links down there for the service manual that I'm using here. All right, so step one, well, step two in the manual, is push the spool fully inward so that the spring that's inside of here is fully compressed. Hold it in that position and set the dial gauge to 0. So basically you want to zero this out with the spool pushed all the way in against the spring. I've already done that. You need about 3 hands or a vise that's actually mounted. This is not a mounted vise, it's just sitting on my workbench. The number etched on the bottom of the spool valve is the number in thousandths of travel the spool valve should have when it's pushed in or out. Let's see what the manual says on how to check it. Once you've got this zeroed out, push it in, slowly release it, and observe the gauge reading. If the gauge reading is greater than the dimension etched on the end of the spool has too much travel and the lock nuts require tightening. If the reading is less, then you'll need to unscrew it, unscrew these lock nuts over here to give the spool more movement. After adjusting it, lock the nuts back. The testing that I'm doing here is with the lock nuts tight. Okay, so let's just do this, just for grins. You can kind of already see I'm out of spec. If 100's etched on the bottom of my spool valve, I'm at 103 right now. Zero it out. The spring is fully compressed. Let it out slowly. And you can see that I'm at 103-ish thou. So I'm off by basically 3 thou. This probably happened when I was messing around up here trying to get the spool valve to turn in the bore while it was still on the tractor. Be careful if you're messing around with these nuts. To loosen the lock nuts, you're going to need a thin wrench. I had to grind one down. I didn't have a thin 7/16 wrench, so I had to grind one down. You can kind of see the difference between a standard, well, let me get right there. You can kind of see the difference between a standard wrench and the thickness of it and the one I had to grind down. There's not a lot of space up here, and you've got to be able to get 2 wrenches together, just like so, to loosen those lock nuts. These nuts being locked together keeps the setting intact. The threads themselves have some slop, I think. You machinists out there, tell me if I'm wrong or not on this, but I think this is the way this is happening. When you loosen these lock nuts, the setting over here is going to change because it's no longer locked together and you've got some slop in the threads, I think. Correct me in the comments below, machinists, if I'm wrong. So basically, any adjustment that you do, you have to lock the lock nuts back, then test. This is going to be a trial and error thing. Make a change, lock the lock nuts back, check the setting. At least that's the way I understand it. All right, I'm going to loosen these up. You should see the dial indicator jump to a higher number, and it did. All right, I was at 103, so I'm going to tighten this. Let's see, I'm sitting on 106 right now with the lock nuts loose. I'm going to back it off about 2 thou and see what happens. Okay, there is a slot up here on the top of the spool valve for a screwdriver. Set your screwdriver in there. to keep the spool from turning while you're turning the nut. Then you can tighten. Okay, I'm going to try that right there. All right, finger tight the lock nut. I might be right on. I'm going to tighten it just a little bit more. See, these lock nuts need to be pretty tight. Well, that's as tight as I'm going to get it. Okay, now let's retest. Bottom of my spool valve says 100. That would be 100 thousandths. Press all the way in. I'm still zeroed out with the spring fully compressed. Slowly release. Where do I end up? That is bang on 100 thousandths. Huh. Let's repeat that and see. Am I dreaming? There we go at 0. And there we are at 0. I'm going to come around here. I've been looking at this from an angle. I'm going to come in here straight on so I can see. I may be wrong. 0. And 0. Just a hair past. Wow. I'm slightly proud of myself on that. All right, what does the manual say next? When the lock nuts have been tightened, make a final check by holding the spool fully inwards, which we did, making sure that the dial gauge is set to 0 still, and then slowly releasing the spool. If the gauge reading, and this is very important for y'all, make sure you're understanding this part. If the gauge reading is more than 1 thou from the setting dimension etched on the bottom of the spool valve, readjust it and recheck the spool valve and recheck the spool travel. When the gauge reading is not more than 1 thousandths from the dimension etched on the bottom of the spool, the setting is satisfactory. However, a minus spool setting is not acceptable. What does that mean? You know, you read it in the manual and try to understand it and comprehend it. What does it mean? It means that you can be over the number etched on the bottom of the spool by 1 thou. You cannot be under it though. If I was at 99.5, that's not acceptable. If I'm at 100.5 or up to 101, that's acceptable. If I'm at 102, that's not acceptable. So basically your range is 1 thousandths from the number on the bottom of the spool valve plus 1. And I cannot believe that I got that right there. All right, I still don't believe it, so I'm going to do something here, and y'all just, I don't know if this is right or not, but I'm still going to check it. I'm going to pull this away, rotate the spool valve in the bore, and check it again. Oh, no, it's settling. Oh, there it is. Well, this is a Harbor Freight dial indicator. It's not a Starrett by any means. Is it 0? And a little past 0. I mean, that's so perfect. It's not even funny. All right, so that's how you check the travel on your spool valve and how to adjust it if it needs to be adjusted. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day.